Welcome to Lunch with Tech Leaders, where we have engaging conversations about software development and cloud engineering with industry leaders and subject matter experts. These episodes are created by the Great Lakes Tech Leaders, an online community of technology practitioners. Please come join the conversation by visiting gltl.rbn.ai. Again, that's gltl.rbn.ai. Now strap in, because we're deploying to production in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome to Lunch with Tech Leaders. My name is Derek DeJonghe, and I'll be your host for today. Joining me is software and data consultant Tom Kowalski. Tom, how are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. We've got a couple really great folks joining us as well. Ell, could you introduce yourself a little bit here?
Hey, I'm Ell Marquez. I am a cloud researcher and trainer over at a company called Nuveg, and I think overall I'm just a big proponent of community building.
Fantastic. And Amit.
Yeah, my name is Amit. I am a freelance web developer. I've been working on my own business over the last year, building it up, and I've spoken at many meetups and conferences.
Great. Yeah, and so today what we're going to be talking about is the impact on public speaking and doing tech talks on one's career. Personally, I've done quite a bit of public speaking, and I was kind of pushed into it. So I kind of wanted to discuss that a little bit and, just kind of get it out there, kick the topic around. I think we've got, all four of us have done quite a bit of speaking here. So I think it's going to be a great topic. So let's just jump in. I guess I can probably start. I was, like I mentioned, I was kind of pushed into speaking a little bit. When I joined Right Brain Networks, my boss, Jamie Began, the CEO and founder of Right Brain, was running the AWS meetup here locally in Ann Arbor. And he had pushed me to, do a talk, provide some content. And so I put together a talk on Salt Stack, kind of got through those first nerves. I was pretty young, probably about 23. It wasn't much long after that I submitted that same talk to the Salt Stack conference. And that ended up taking me out to Salt Lake City, which was really cool. Got to meet a lot of new people, meet people that were building Salt Stack, made a lot of great connections. And I continued to speak around, the community, doing AWS meetup and stuff like that. Ended up doing some other things, right? Like EdgeAct conference out, and I think that was in California somewhere, I'm probably in the Bay. And that talk actually got me into writing books with O'Reilly. So really opened up a lot of opportunities for me and a lot of new connections and networking and stuff like that. And, something that Jamie has always said is like the best way to learn something is to teach it. So kind of really pushed myself there. So yeah, that's my kind of, beginning experience and speaking and kind of like where I'm at on these, on this discussion. So anyway, who's up next? What do you guys want to talk about here?
I go through and just, I guess, let us say how we got started.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of get this started here.
All right, I'm just going to jump in because that's always me. Well, at this point, I think I've spoken at well over 100 conferences. I've lost count at this point. If you ask me and I can be there, I usually will be. My favorite story to tell is actually how I got started, because people will tell me, well, I'm just not technical enough. I don't have anything to teach anyone. And my first talk was actually called Building a Stronger Community by Poisoning the Well. And I was just having a very, very bad experience being a female who was new to technology in the Linux community. It was just, I was so angry because people kept saying that we want diversity and we want to grow, but I was being treated like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I submitted to Linux Fest in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I just went on stage and I was like, this is my truth. I let them have it. And I was actually really surprised at how welcoming people were to the message. And somebody in the audience actually invited me to come speak in their company because they thought the message would really just resound with the people there. And that was the beginning of it. When I was like, okay, people want to hear this. And eventually I was like, well, if they want to hear my story with that, I'm just going to teach a newbie thing to Linux. And people kept being accepting of the message and kept inviting me back out. So it's just been an amazing adventure that's taken me all over the world.
Wow, that's a great story. So I'm excited to hear more. Amit, how'd you get started in public speaking in tech?
So, back in like 2014 or 2015, this is when I had just started learning web development, kind of pivoted careers a little bit to go full into it. And so at that time, there's a JavaScript framework, Angular. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, have heard of it, but one of the recommendations I had from a mentor was to like join a meetup that is about the, framework or technology so that I can, meet with fellow peers and learn from them, that kind of stuff. And so I saw that there wasn't one in Detroit. So I created my first meetup called NG Detroit. Now, I was new to web development and this framework. So my ulterior motives was to create this group and network and find people who are smarter than me so I can ask them the questions that I'm just struggling finding the answers to online. But it turned out the first meetup I had, people came in and just expected me to be the expert. And that kind of put me in an awkward position because, I was pretty transparent about my experience level. But, it was just a matter of, I guess, because I took the initiative, that I kind of just built a reputation where I started building more meetups and organizing events, and I got sponsors for food and venue sponsors, and it just kind of turned into something bigger than I had imagined. But at the same time, my initial goal was really just to connect people and ask some questions and learn from.
Yeah, that's fantastic as well. Tom, how about yourself?
Yeah, I always wanted to do public speaking and events, but there was never a topic or content or whatever that I felt too comfortable with until serverless came out, Lambda, and the other serverless offerings, and I really was drawn to it, and kind of became an expert in it, and ended up starting the serverless meetup in the Detroit area. Did a few talks on that. Did the DevOps days. On a talk in serverless and DevOps, and it kind of my company supported it as well, so that was kind of that gateway. The management kind of allowed us to focus on that. So yeah, that's how I got in. I've done a few other AWS related talks. The AWS Michigan meetup, I did that as well. So yeah, I kind of like to ask everyone. So my company that I worked for at the time kind of enabled us to do the public speaking. I'm assuming you guys had the same experience in enabling you to do that. What advice do you have for others that are looking to do that and maybe don't have the support of their company? Or
I mean, Tom, as you know, I was extremely supported, and get where I'm doing public speaking. So really, I don't know. I wouldn't see why a company would not be supportive. It seems like that would be an anti-pattern, right? Like any publicity where you've got your engineers out there kind of showcasing knowledge is, I think, a great thing. So
what I've hit is actually companies where you're not directly doing something that relates. Most companies, when you're not doing something that directly relates to what they're selling, really don't want to spend the money on sending you further than a local meetup or maybe just something down the street. So when I first started out, everything was coming out of pocket: flights, food, even hotel. But I just really thought it could be something that I could excel at and was willing to make that investment. So I think when you're starting out, you have to set up a realistic expectation of what you're willing to do at that time. Are you just going out to local meetups and you're looking to meet some people? Are you looking to build a career around it? And once you're there, then you start making the decisions on how much financial, what is my financial situation and how much am I willing to invest in what it is that I believe in or what it is that I want to grow into.
I can relate to that. I'd like to piggyback if I could about that because I've had a mixture of experience. So that first meetup I started, I was freelancing at the time, and then I got a job offer, and that company uses its own internal framework. So while they didn't mind that I was running meetups and wanting to gig in conferences, because it wasn't necessarily the tech stack that they used, they really weren't like supportive. Besides, like, if I wanted to go to something, it came out of pocket. They really didn't invest anything or contribute to anything besides just being flexible to my scheduling. So like to Ell's point, I kind of had to self-finance it to the point where once, I had to, reconcile with myself that like it's something I wanted to do, and I saw the future potential. And once I started, building my meetup, that they saw like, oh wow, look how many members are joining and how many people are showing up to my events, that then they started seeing the potential in like the marketing or the PR value to it. But for that initial, like, I would say like 6 to 8 months, that was just really self-funded in terms of like buying the food or travel costs alone.
I will say that once you get established in your career and you know that this is what you love, I would make it a part of what you're asking when you're interviewing with the company. When I started with Nuvik and I'm going through the interview, I literally said, you know what, public speaking is something that is just fills my bucket. And if this isn't something I can do with this company, I'm probably not interested in being with it. And so when they came back and they said, yeah, you know what, we're not interested in making a profit if you're out there growing and giving back to the community. I was like, okay, now I'm interested in this company.
Interesting. So now, do they sponsor the events that you go to and everything now?
So they'll sponsor me when I'm going to a specific conference like, DevOps Detroit, but they will also sponsor conferences like the Diana Initiative, knowing that it's probably not something that we're targeting to a audience that we're going to be selling a product to or a service to, but just helping really get the message out there to what's available in the tech sector. It's a very different type of approach to it that I really enjoy, and I hope that more companies are willing to see beyond the marketing dollars.
Yeah. So I think this is probably a good. We've been kind of dancing around DevOps Days Detroit quite a bit. DevOps Days Detroit was. Well, let's back up. DevOps Days is what's the word I'm looking for? Franchise type conference. It has a specific format. It follows a very rigid guide as to how the conference should be administered, but it's up to the localities to actually go through and like provide the conference. So we have one here in Detroit. There's a really big one in Chicago, Amsterdam, so on and so forth. Basically every big city in the world has a DevOps Days. DevOps Days Detroit was actually started in 2015. Jamie Began, like I mentioned, with he started the AWS Michigan. He also, got involved and got this DevOps Days Detroit, started in 2015 and kind of passed the buck to a nonprofit who is running it now called DevOps Detroit. I'm actually an organizer for the DevOps Days Detroit this year. And last year. So I've been involved a little bit since 2015 in DevOps Days Detroit. And I've really love the format of the conference and the ethos about, really what they're trying to provide. Ell is going to be our keynote this year, October 18th and 19th, 2023. So super excited about that.
Yeah.
Tom, you're going to be coming, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. Like I said, I spoke at. I was an organizer as well, but it was during the COVID times. We never actually had an event. So yeah, I'm excited to get back in, and excited we're having another one this year.
Yeah. So Ellie, you got anything to say about DevOps Days in general? I mean, I know you've spoke at quite a few of them at this point, right?
I have loved how welcoming the community is, because I technically haven't been on the operations side of the house since 2016. I've never been a developer. So it's crazy that I've been asked to speak at, DevOps Days Houston. I got to keynote DevOps Days Texas, which was just something I never expected. But coming from the security side of the house, where we're always thinking, and look, I'm going to be blunt here. We start thinking, well, developers just don't care about security. They're just not interested in it. They're just looking to push. They're just looking to push the code. And the more that I've spent with the community, the more I've realized how wrong that viewpoint is. It's just about establishing a relationship between the security and DevOps communities. So I think these conferences are an amazing opportunity to do that and to go outside of work and actually start seeing what each side of the house is interested in and how we can merge those together.
I think security gets a bad rap. I really do think that developers and operations folk do care about security. So don't discredit that.
Hopefully I didn't sound like I was. I was just meaning to say that that's the view that we tend to see and pointing out, how wrong we've really been when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think, everybody likes to make jokes about security, but I mean, it's extremely important, right? So I think everybody actually does value it, but the jokes are funny, right? So yeah, your background's definitely welcome to DevOps Days, for sure. I spoke at a couple of DevOps Days, actually. I took the Environments as Cattle, talked to, what was that, Columbus? And that was fun. I kind of had a quick run through of a talk. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting point. Developing a talk. I heard from Matt Stratton, I think it was Matt Stratton, who said, like, if you're going to give a talk, just do one really well and present that all over the place for a year, And that's why I tried to do that. And so I, developed my talk. I got better at it by, presenting at AWS Michigan. I took it to Columbus, and then ended up, I feel like I really, really hit it well in DevOps Days Detroit. And I'd like to kind of do that more. I don't have one this year, but I think next year, definitely put something together and trying to submit it to multiple different conferences around the country and kind of get back out there and do some evangelicalism. I see some of these like real big speakers like Ell, you're kind of one of them that, I admire, that is on the road and is out there, providing knowledge and viewpoint to quite a few people and making a real impact. I call them like, tech evangelicalists or whatever. The ones that just like speak all over the place. And it's like, man, is this company like, do you do anything for them, or are you just out here speaking? But I think that's a really cool position. I kind of always wanted to see myself in that as well.
I piggyback off that really quick and kind of dip my toe into what my talk will be at DevOps Days. Is that all right, or should I keep that under wraps?
Oh no, go for it. We're promoting. We're ready to hear what you got to say. Give us some insight.
So I understand that you did not mean it in a negative way, but the whole concept of, do you do anything for your company, or just, out here talking, is kind of what I'm touching base on when it comes to the concept of diversity, because I have been seen as a non-technical individual, because I do tend to stick to community talks and helping build the community in that way. But at the same time, I'm at Nuvik researching and building cloud training courses. That's not what people see when I'm up there on stage. So when it comes to the terms of diversity, are we actually doing an injustice to people by promoting their diversity, not what they've contributed to the actual tech community?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. There's definitely been, we do see quite a bit of push on diversity.
I'll tell you, one time when I got hired, I'm, just onboarding and everything, and my manager legitimately said, yeah, it was down to 2 candidates, but we wanted a viewpoint that wasn't just, a white male. And I just stopped and I said, I know that you think that's a good thing, but were you telling me that I wasn't qualified for the job, but you only hired me because I was a Hispanic female? That's insulting to me, because it takes away how hard that I've worked towards, getting to this position.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely, last year, when we were talking about, what our focus for DevOps Days Detroit was going to be, we did kind of battle with the idea of like, are we pushing diversity in a, failing to find the words, like an unauthentic way by like just being like, oh, diversity first, rather than like actually, looking at people for their actual qualifications, right? And what is diversity, right? As far as like, it's not just demographic, right? It's also knowledge and, backgrounds in people's careers, So we definitely danced that line a little bit on like what we're looking for in diversity.
I'd like to ask a question, if I could, sort of backpedaling a little bit. What kind of talks would you want to see at DevOps Day? As someone who's interested in submitting a talk, and just, listen to you guys speak, and I agree with both points. I think I have sort of an opinionated view when I go to conferences as well, because there's part of me that is looking for deep dive technical, but I also know that sometimes, like, because of talk and the nature of a conference, you can't go really specific without sort of alienating a part of your audience. But I also agree with like the non-technical talks as well, as they provide perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so have you been to a DevOps Days conference?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing until I saw the link.
Okay, yeah, so DevOps Days, submit a talk about anything DevOps that you want, right? Technical or not. One thing that I really feel great about this conference is that it really is about, it has a deep seed in like culture, how people work together, and not just like, I build a cool pipeline, you know what I mean? It's more very much so about, teams working together and how to bridge that gap between, your development operations and security and, management, PMs, QA. So that's a really interesting topic for me, because I was in the management space for, quite a few years there. So I really enjoy that aspect of this conference, and that is part of what I see in the ethos across all of the DevOps days, across the world.
It does have to be a healthy mix of both, because if you think about it, a lot of the people that are going to these conferences are perhaps new to the industry and looking to strengthen their skills, see what technology that they need to tackle and what they need to learn. When I was first starting out, I hated going to a talk and just sitting there and looking over at whoever's next to me and, do you understand them? What are they talking about? So by having those quote unquote newbie talks, those starter talks, first of all, you go in there going, I understand what they're saying. And you start getting points on, okay, this is how they got started. This is a road that I can follow. I'm leaving with a list of things that I want to tackle and a source to somebody that I can reach out to that speaker and say, hey, I know that you said this. What recommendation would you have for me to further my knowledge here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you mentioned, Ell, people feel welcome to reach out to a speaker. And I feel like the people that are providing that knowledge really do feel excited about kind of helping others and providing that information to the community and building that network of people. And that's one thing that I've really gotten a lot out of public speaking, is just building my own community and getting to meet people and putting myself around really smart individuals.
So, Al, what advice do you have for somebody that is looking to start, that has never done public speaking, looking to speak at one of these conferences?
Yeah, find a topic that you're excited about. Don't worry if anybody else wants to listen to it. Don't worry, well, is it non-technical enough or not technical enough? Just be passionate about what it is that you want to talk about, and you'd be surprised how much your passion will just be contagious to the audience and get them excited about what it is that you're talking about. Don't worry about the community. Don't worry about who's out there. Worry about what message it is that you want to talk about, whether it be containers, whether it be the pipeline, whether it be the cloud. Somebody else is going to be interested as well, and your passion and your excitement is going to get them motivated.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. That's what got me going. I was very passionate, motivated about it, and yeah, it came easy from that point.
And don't be afraid to submit. Okay, you are probably going to get rejected. I've been turned down by a few conferences, and I'm going to tell you, the first time it hurt, because I'm going, wait, I've spoken here, I've spoken there. Why don't they want to hear me? At the same time, other voices need to be heard as well. So just because you get one rejection, go and apply at 6 more different conferences, write the organizers and say, hey, what was it about my abstract or my submission that I could do better with in order to, be able to improve my chances? A lot of times it isn't your topic or your subject. It just happens to be how you attempted to communicate it through that abstract.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The just do it, submit that talk. Even if, you don't think it's perfect right now, but yeah, that's what got my foot in the door is, okay, I don't know exactly how I'm going to say this, how I'm going to present it. But I just need to do it. Right. And as soon as I submitted it and it was accepted, then I was like, okay, now I can. It was kind of like get that push to actually make a good talk, right?
That brings up a point, because yeah, I'm the same way where like I will apply and create the talk, because that's usually my case. And I'm like, I'm just gonna pitch this, and we'll see it happen, and then we'll tackle the next problem when we get there. But I know a lot of friends that, like, I have a buddy that doesn't want to apply for a talk without me co-speaking, and I've always had a conflict with it, because while I want to support them in getting the exposure that they want, and breaking the ice in terms of doing some talks, the other approach is just more like, I guess I just have never felt nervous about applying, because I don't know, I'm always willing to take initiative. So I've always been conflicted about this, because how do I support them on, submitting the talk with or without me, right?
I have an answer for you, because this is something that I've had to do. Agree to be the co-speaker, but then be a mentor throughout it. I've done co-speaking where I literally talked about 3 minutes out of a 30-minute talk. But when preparing, oh, you say that way better than me. You know what? How about you say it this way? I think it would be better for you to take this, this portion of it. And as you help build up their confidence, yes, you being on stage with them is going to make them a lot more comfortable. It's going to make them comfortable because you're there, you looked at the abstract to submit. Think of this not as a co-speaker role, but as a mentor role to get them out there and talking.
As a leader at Rightburn, we definitely had some slots to fill for AWS Michigan, but didn't push quite a few of our engineers to get out there and do some talks. I think it's good to get outside your comfort zone, kind of put yourself out there a little bit, and see if some speaking isn't for everybody, and that's okay. But I think that some folks could use a little bit of a push, and it could really benefit their career. So I definitely did that with quite a few folks. It did quite a bit for me. So
yeah, no, I appreciate this, because that's always been a conflict for me, because part of me wants to apply, but not sure me co-speaking with them is sort of giving them a crutch, or actually a supportive role in their journey. And the feedback that I've just received from you guys gives me a bit more context for that.
I think Ell put it in a really great way, right? Like your support of that person is kind of what you make it, right? You can be as involved or as, not involved as you want to be, as long as that person feels supported and they feel like they're, able to deliver the content that they're trying to provide to the audience. Just be supportive to others, and that's what all this stuff is about, is building our community, providing knowledge, or like sharing knowledge, right? And building all of us up. So, whatever you can provide, whatever you're comfortable providing to others is, typically a net positive on the community as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's completely fine, right? To allow people to start, right? And co-speaking. I kind of feel like we do that with the podcast. Like, we have a host and, subject matter expert, and I kind of sit here as like a buffer, or we'll have somebody else on. So it's not just, there's not too much pressure on somebody to have to speak, and be under fire the whole time.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, what, you're like 52 weeks straight on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
One of them, man.
But the good thing is I get excited about all things tech, so it is my passion. So whatever we talk about, even public speaking, I'm all for it. I'm passionate. I'm on board.
Cool. So we're hitting that 30-minute mark here. Does anybody have any last minute thoughts, things that they had on the tip of their tongue they wanted to get out before we kind of start wrapping up here?
I think I like to jump right in. So I'd like to give just some parting advice for those that are considering, really submitting their first talk and, just speaking at even just a local conference. Just do it. Seriously, just jump right in, give it a try. At one conference, I fell off the stage. So as long as you don't fall off the stage, you're already doing better than I've done. So just have fun with it, enjoy your adventure, and teach others what it is that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, the nerves right before getting on stage and delivering a talk can be quite a lot. But once you get off, and you've presented that information, it's kind of a sigh of relief, right? And nobody comes up to you and says, "Man, that was a terrible talk. I didn't like any of the information." People come up to you and say, "Hey, thank you. I really appreciated what you had to say." I've had people, provide me with, their knowledge afterwards, and I corrected my talk and, made it better the next time. So it's always been, in my experience, positive feedback. So
Definitely. Yeah. I feel motivated now. I haven't done a talk in a while, but since COVID now. So yeah, I'm motivated by your advice. I think I'm gonna submit a talk coming up here. Thank you.
call for proposals is open for DevOps days, Tom.
I'm gonna have to check it out. On with you, Matt.
Yeah, I'll be probably filling out a talk. I mean, half the battle is really coming up with a topic.
Hey, Derek and
certainly
Amit, is the GDG conference coming up? Doesn't that happen in the fall?
Yeah, that's actually where I met Amit.
Yeah, I met you there too. I gave a talk last year, an impromptu talk, but
Yeah,
I do proposals and stuff like these other conferences, or
let me Google that real quick.
For those, what is that conference?
Developer days.
Okay.
DevFest, I think, right?
I know they just had one specifically around AI. GDD Detroit, upcoming July 23rd, 18th, May, April. Doesn't look like anything's coming up. We some past events, fairly recently, July 13th, they had some large language model talks going on. But yeah, I honestly, I really enjoyed that conference as well. I went into it with my talk was a little bit different. I kind of flipped it on its head and I asked questions of the audience instead of, providing them information. I was looking for information for myself. And I thought we had a pretty good discussion. It was the last talk of the conference. It provided people a chance to kind of just like let loose and, discuss amongst themselves.
Yeah, I love asking questions too. It can be double edged. Sometimes I'll get carried away and go a lot longer, miss some things that I want to talk about. But yeah, I love a setting right where you can ask questions and interact.
and I think there's a conference code mash that's drivable if you don't want to take a flight or have to afford those costs, or if your company's not paying for your talk, you could drive to Sandusky. I think I attended last year, and so I'll think about maybe you guys inspired me to maybe come up with some slides and try to put a talk together maybe.
All right.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great to hear that we've, inspired you. All right. So with that, I think we can, wrap up here. Ell, Amit, and Tom, I really appreciate you guys jumping in and providing some, experience and distributing your knowledge and your experience with public speaking. So
Thank you.